My name is Chance. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 13th of 2013. I identify as an alcoholic because whenever I have alcohol in my system, I don't know what's going to happen next, and I can't control the amount that I take. I also identify as an alcoholic even though I did a lot of drugs, because even when I was doing drugs, I was still obsessing over alcohol. For me, alcoholism is not about the amount that I took. It was about what happened when I took whatever I was taking. I drank for the effect. Telling a little bit about my backstory. I grew up in a military family. Both my parents served in the Navy. My dad came from Russia. My mom came from Northern Louisiana. They both met in a military base. They got married after about 3 weeks, and they've been married for the past 30 years. I grew up in a relatively loving family. We had some rough times, but, I was always loved. I always had what I needed. I never worried about shelter. I never worried about, food. I never worried about security for most of my childhood. At the same time, my name is Chance because my mom was not supposed to be able to have a second kid. And I was born anyway. And so from the day that I was born, I had this idea that I wasn't supposed to be here. There's no reason why I should be on this earth. I shouldn't be alive. And, I grew up the first 12 years or so. I had a lot of speech problems. I had a lot of physical therapy stuff going on. I was very sick as a child. I had a lot of early childhood memories of being bullied because I felt a little bit different. I was always an outsider. I moved a lot when I was a kid. By the time I was 10 or 11 years old, there was this distinct feeling that, something was missing. And by the time I was in junior high, at 12 years old, I had my first suicide attempt. And by the time I was, 13, I was already in and out of institutions. And so, to paint a picture, on the outside, for the most part, my family was relatively okay, right? The first 13 years of my life, both my parents came from abusive households, and both of them managed to not be abusive to me and my sister. They managed to break that cycle. But at the same time, no matter how loving they were, no matter how many morals and ethics that, they had instilled in me, I still felt like I needed to not face reality. And, I still felt like, something was missing. And I still had this obsession over the idea that I was different. And so, by the time I was junior high, as I was saying, I'm in and out of psych wards, I'm trying to kill myself, I'm doing all these destructive behavior, and I'm looking for a solution that would allow me to function, right? Because, I didn't really have high hopes for myself. And I discovered alcohol. And alcohol for me allowed me to not want to kill myself. That was the main objective for me. When I drank alcohol, I was able to, go to school, have dinner with my family, and not be absolutely miserable most of the time. And, essentially it worked until it didn't. And that's the story for most of the stuff that I've tried in and out of sobriety to feel okay. And so between, 14, 16 years old, I'm drinking, I'm getting high, I'm taking my dad's pills. I'm doing whatever I can to not feel feelings. I'm messed up or I'm drunk on a regular basis. And if I'm not messed up or drunk, I'm thinking about getting messed up or drunk. But I still felt like I had arrived. When I had a drink or a drug in my system, I felt okay. And it was that feeling that I was seeking whenever I drank or I did drugs. And then it got to a point where that stopped working. And so, by the time I was 16 years old, I tried everything to feel okay, right? I tried drugs and alcohol. I became an honor roll student. I lost 80 pounds and did track and field. I became a cross country runner. I began, doing all these extra things. I began to try to be, the smartest person and the most athletic person. And, I did all these things on the outside to fix the inside. And, I got to a point where none of it mattered. It was never enough, even at that age. And all my friends, at that time were being normal teenagers, and they may party and they may do this and that, but they were still able to go to school and have jobs and have a normal childhood. And, I couldn't. I got to a point where I just couldn't do that. I couldn't function. And so, by, 2013, I was broken. I was 17 years old. At this point, I'd been in and out of, rehab, psychiatric institutions. I've been in and out of outpatient treatment. I'd been trying to do things on my own. And, what happened for me was, I was in Alcoholics Anonymous for a few months. And, it was April of 2013. And, I had stayed sober out of rehab for about 4 months out of spite, because people told me that I wasn't going to stay sober and I had to prove them wrong. And, the thought crossed my brain that if I drank hand sanitizer after I mixed it up and made my own alcohol, that I would feel okay. And so I did that. I blacked out. I felt terrible. I had to sponsor a name. I called that sponsor. I remember him asking me how it was working out for me, and obviously it wasn't working out very well. But something that day shifted, and I'd finally lost any control I had left. And between, March and June of that year, I was off to the races. I was completely messed up every single day. My brain was deteriorating. My organs were starting to shut down. I looked like I was going to drop dead. Whenever I went to meetings, I couldn't hold a coffee cup. I had a hard time driving. I had a hard time speaking. And I was done. I got to a point even at 17 where I just couldn't take it anymore. And I couldn't live with alcohol or without alcohol. And what happened was, I decided to kill myself. That was my solution I had in the beginning, and that was the solution I had, before I got sober. I recognized that I couldn't live sober because that was impossible. And I couldn't live drunk because that experience was also terrible. And so, I tried to kill myself one last time. And the next day, June 13th of 2013, I woke up and I was still alive, and I was angry and very messed up. But I was sober. And I've been sober ever since that day. And I remember a few days afterwards, I'm going to this young people's meeting in Bloomington, Illinois, where I'd spent a lot of my childhood. And, I couldn't sit still. So I was in the parking lot, and these two young people, walked outside and asked me how I was doing. And, I told the truth, and they 12-stepped me right in that parking lot, and they read me the big book, and they dragged me along. And, around this time, to give you a little context, my dad was having health issues. He had lost his job at State Farm down there, and we were moving to Vegas while I was getting sober to be closer to my grandparents at the time. And so I was trying to deal with a cross-country move while also trying to stay sober. The first 3 weeks, I'm getting 12-stepped, and I have some semblance of hope for the first time in a while that maybe I wasn't quite as different as I thought I was. And then, I go to Vegas, and, I get a sponsor there. I start doing the deal. I go to meetings, I get situated. I'm going back to high school. I'm trying to, basically, live life. And, eventually, I get to a point after 4 months sober where once again I'm at the jumping off point, because, I still didn't have a solution. I didn't grow up religious. Both my parents, were not religious by the time that they had me. I never read a Bible, never went to church, never was forced to. I still don't to this day. But I also didn't really believe that, I was the greatest power in the universe either. And that's really all I had to do to get to step 2. And, I came to believe that maybe, just maybe, if I did it someone else's way, even if I didn't get all the God stuff right away, that my life would be a little bit easier. And eventually I did that, and I surrendered, and I started going through the steps. And, you know, basically what happened for me was I kind of had these two lives, right? So in my first year of sobriety, you know, I'm 17 years old in Vegas, and I'm going through the steps, and you know, I found a higher power, and that higher power was Nikki. It was a relationship, and I thought I'd finally found a solution. You know, if I had this relationship with this person, that was how I was going to stay sober. You know, that was my happiness. And so I'm going to meetings, and then I'm dating this person in the program who's 20 years sober, you know, twice my age, you know, has a lot of power and influence, and I have neither. And you know, I'm going through what is turning out to be a crazy relationship, and I'm going through these various traumatic things that eventually I'll talk about. And you know, at the same time, I'm going to meetings and I'm being of service, and I'm telling people how great I am and how spiritual I am. And at night, you know, I'm selling my body, I'm doing all sorts of, you know, messed up things and just completely, you know, spiritually bankrupt. And so, you know, I have another bottom in sobriety at about a year sober, you know, right after my, you know, I graduated high school, where I realized that the lifestyle I was living, and it wasn't sustainable, and I was absolutely miserable, and I still wanted to stay sober. And so I ran, you know, I ran away from that relationship. You know, I left Vegas behind, and I started this pattern over years of just trying to find the perfect location, you know, the perfect job, the perfect setup. You know, I still kept trying to find the outside thing that would solve all my problems. And I'm staying sober because throughout this all, I'm still sponsoring people. I'm still doing service work. And my experience has been, you know, regardless of the quality of my sobriety, as long as I'm helping another alcoholic, I'm going to stay sober. You know, I have a shot at being sober. You know, if I start practicing the principles, you know, my sobriety is going to be a little bit more quality. But at the very least, physically, I'll stay sober if I keep doing the work and I keep surrendering. And so I did that for several years. And what happened for me was, you know, I spent several years trying to chase this vision of this perfect person that I thought I had to be, you know, this perfect relationship, this perfect job, you know, this perfect setup, you know, this perfect bank account. And so, you know, what happened for me was, you know, fast forward, I'm 5 years sober, I'm 22, 23 years old, and I have this bank job. You know, I got my license back. I got this middle class car, I guess you could say. You know, I'm in the city of Chicago, and I have yet another relationship I think is going to solve all my problems. And you know, I get engaged to this woman after 2 months of dating, on Facebook Live at a young people's conference in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, that video is probably still floating around somewhere. And I really thought I had arrived. You know, I'd found my solution. Once again, you know, I always have to find something to fill that hole. And I was still struggling with the hard power thing. So I'm 5 years sober. I'm engaged to be married. I'm trying to learn the Catholic Church because she wanted to be married in the Catholic Church. I'm moving to Virginia, the countryside of Virginia. You know, I'm trying to be this person. I'm definitely not at all. I'm trying to live this monogamous, you know, boring lifestyle. And, you know, I really think that this will solve my problems. And I finally got to a point where I'm 5 years sober. I have all this stuff, you know, I'm doing all the things, and I'm suicidal, and I'm thinking about a suicide note because I didn't have a spiritual solution, you know, and I was absolutely miserable, and I was trying to be something I wasn't. And, you know, I had worked the steps and I was helping people, or so I thought, but I wasn't really practicing the principles. And so, you know, I had another jumping off point in 5 years sober where I had to make a decision. And I finally made a decision to surrender again and, you know, surrender everything. And, you know, it's been 2 years since that time period. And I can tell you it hasn't been easy. You know, I've lost everything several times over. You know, I had to break that engagement because I realized that I didn't actually want to be married. And that's one of the primary qualifications if you're engaged, to be engaged, it turns out. I didn't actually want to live in Virginia. I didn't actually want to have all this stuff that I thought I had. And, you know, little by little, I'm starting to strip away all these outside things that I thought was going to make me happy. And, you know, this continued, and, you know, I continued this road of trying to find myself basically, and trying to figure out, you know, what spiritual solution works for me. and what higher power works for me, because I couldn't fake it anymore. I couldn't use other people's conceptions. I really had to find what worked for me. And, it's been an ongoing journey. And, I can tell you that, I'm 7.5 years sober now. I'm 24 years old, and I never thought I would have made it this far. I was expecting to live to be 16. I was not expecting to be an adult. I have no idea what I'm doing. I probably won't for several years at this rate, but I'm still sober, and I've had a hell of a life, and I don't regret it, a minute of it, because I've learned a lot from my mistakes. Because for me, like, just because I make a mistake or life happens, that doesn't mean I have to drink today. As a human being on planet Earth, life is going to happen. Alcoholics Anonymous does not make me immune to the life events that every single person faces. I had to deal with the loss of a grandfather. I had to deal with the loss of several friends. I've had to deal with mental health issues, trauma issues. I've had to deal with surviving sexual assault. I've had to deal with being homeless, losing a job. I just got laid off a couple months ago, losing an apartment, losing a relationship, like losing every single thing I thought was important. And, today I'm in that process again due to COVID. I'm losing that job. I am losing my apartment. I'm going to be legally homeless in about a week. I'm going to be couch surfing for a little while. I'm moving out west to Vegas to be closer to family. I'm not in a good spot. But the difference today is, like, I know I'm going to be okay. And that's, the main lesson I've learned from sobriety is, I've lived a life that I never thought I wanted. And every single 5-year plan has failed. Every single self-will run riot plan I thought was going to be the cure to my alcoholism has not worked out. I'm not where I thought I would be 5 years ago, but I am where I need to be. And slowly things have come together. And, for me, this year has taught me what's important. And at the end of the day, I still don't have a strong spiritual connection. I still struggle with praying. I still don't have a religious God, so to speak. I do have a spiritual practice, and, I do have the belief that I'm not the greatest person in the universe. And I've definitely believed that, the runes of Alcoholics Anonymous are greater than me. And that's okay. So I guess to close I'm grateful to be here. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight. I've not had the conventional sobriety. Everything that has gone wrong has gone wrong. Every worst case scenario, my sobriety has happened, and I'm still here, and I'm still sober. And I've grown up in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 17 years old when I got sober, and now I'm in my mid-20s. I'm almost not a baby to some people. I can start looking at people who are younger than me, which is weird. In general, one thing I would say to the newcomers is, just keep coming, man. It gets hard and it gets better. And, one thing I've had to learn, and I'll close with this, is, I never have to be alone again. No matter where I am in the country, there are people that love and support me. But that's all I got. Thanks.